Well done. Well done to you. Well done to the players and everybody at Grimsby Town.
Yeah.
2-2, and then it goes straight to penalties. 12-11.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about entertainment, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it. I mean, I don't think the goalkeeping was of the greatest of standard, but the penalties were fair play to them. I was watching Grimsby thinking eventually they're going to miss, they're going to crack.
Me too.
I mean, it was a pitiful penalty from Mateus Cunha, wasn't it, to be able to seal it. I mean, a player that's got such tickets on himself has a moment to shine and then steps up in against the League Two side and passes it to the goalkeeper. But I'm glad that happened because I thought that getting out of jail from Man United in that cup tie would have been an injustice on Grimsby and would have papered over the absolute indignation that they deserved to have thrust in their face.
Yeah.
For what ostensibly in the first half was a pitiful performance. I feel sorry for United fans. I very rarely feel sorry for them because they are quite an entitled lot at times. But I felt sorry for those fans that schlepped across the country to watch a group of players that couldn't be bothered in the first half, didn't think it was for them, didn't fancy it, beneath them. And then I listened to a host of pundits talking about formations. I'll pack it in. It's not about formations when you're playing against a League Two football club, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
It's about a desire and ability.
I know a lot of people.
Neither of them were exhibited in the first half.
A lot of people in the media call themselves Manchester United fans. How they can do that, how you can be both, I do not know. It's impossible. You work in the media, you've got to be right down the middle. You've got to be objective. Call it as it is, which is exactly what you do every single morning you're on with me. So, Simon, 56 places and 3 divisions between the two. Was this a night where levels never came to the fore?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's the great tradition of English Cups, which must never be lost.
True.
And these moments in time are such wonderful things that you enjoy them. I mean, and the owner of the football club, I remember him coming on this show a couple of years ago, and I think he was travelling down to an away game that Grimsby had drawn in the Cup and talking about his new ownership of Grimsby and his aspirations. So I was pleased for him. I saw him last night talking about, Eamon Holmes and Usain Bolt and everyone in Guildford who supports Man United. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Love it.
I'm pretty sure they would like to better draw perhaps in Sheffield Wednesday, but you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely club. I remember going there years and years ago with their old chairman, I think it was Peter Furno, was in situ and playing a game there when I was at Crystal Palace. So they're a great football club, with great traditions, not a great deal of success, but valuable to the community. So levels are always, at the fore when certain thought processes don't exhibit. And one of them was that Manchester United players didn't fancy the game.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be there. I don't really know what Amorim is talking about. I think he wants to say things, and for whatever reason, he'd rather be cryptic about it. Whatever his players spoke loudly of, it can't be that they don't want to play in this formation. It can only be that certain players that he's given an opportunity to, that have got hooks at half-time, like Ugarte, have been given opportunities and are not stepping up.
Well, to me, there's only one question in town. Should he carry on? But we'll get to that. But Simon, after last season's lowly United showing of 15th, and I still can't get my head around that.
Yeah.
Are we honestly heading for worse this time around? I mean, are there more depths to plummet?
But we've all given lots of passes to managers and talked about the weight of the shirt and talked about the culture of the football club and talked about the expectations of Manchester United and the challenges and clearly the inherent situation that's inside the football club. But I don't know what, tragically, I found out that Ruben Amorim graduated from the same coaching class as Gabi Abonglaho this morning, so that might explain a few things. But if you've been somewhere for 10 months, it is unfathomable to suggest that the United fans are along with Amorim now, because we're talking about 10 months now. He joined in November of last year, or maybe the very early part of December. His first game was against Ipswich, wasn't it? And we're now talking about a football club that he's been in charge of for 10 months. And there seems to be nothing changed. In fact, there seems to be a deterioration, if that's a possibility. Now, he will say the last 2 games in the Premier League, he says curious things. He talks about the fact that when they played Arsenal, they put a performance in that could beat anyone in the Premier League, yet you seem to have evaded that you lost.
Yeah.
So you couldn't beat anyone in the Premier League because you just lost to Arsenal.
Right.
And he talks about not being in Europe. He's a strange brew. I don't know what they saw in him in the first place besides the fantastic record that he had in Portugal. Clearly he's got something about him, but clearly he's been given almost an enormous amount of latitude, because this is a car crash in front of your eyes of deterioration and managing people's expectations. I guess the only thing you can think that he's doing is taking people's expectations to such a low level they can now over-deliver.
Right. Well, you talk about Amorim, Simon, and you're not wrong, saying curious things. So post-match, was there a tone of resignation to Ruben Amorim? He was asked what was the most disappointing aspect of the performance.
Everything. The way we start the game, we were not even here. When everything is so important in our club, everything that happened, it's a problem in our club. We should do so much better. So I just have to say sorry to our fans, and I felt my players spoke really loud today what they want.
Can you just elaborate on that? What you mean? Your players spoke very loud on what they want.
Easy for you. Let's focus on the next game, and then we have the stop for the international games. We will think things through. You cannot change so much. You cannot change everything in one summer, but you need to win games. You need to don't show this kind of performance. I think that this is a little bit the limit. So I think something has to change. But let's focus on in this moment. We need to focus on the weekend, and then we have time to think.
What do you take out of that?
Well, not a lot.
Do you take out of that we're almost at the time now? We're almost at the time now. I don't have any more answers. We're almost there.
Well, I mean, he doesn't bristle in interviews, and that might just be an Iberian style in terms of the way that he operates, and he isn't one of those, albeit that Mourinho's a Portuguese, and he bristled at every opportunity, didn't he? So it's not generic to that particular part of the world that they have a bit more about them in terms of, rather than if that was Ferguson or someone of his ilk, there'd be bristling, there'd be rage, you'd see it, and it's not there. It's a calm, balanced view of what he's not comfortable with. But I don't know how long you can allow it to go on.
It's a defeated view, though, Simon, isn't it? But does that not sound to you like a manager laying the foundations for his own exit?
I don't know. I mean, we heard rumours earlier on in the year, didn't we? And obviously the thing in football, and we've said it 100 times, the two biggest commodities are gossip and money. And one of the rumours was that he'd handed his resignation in and was told to get out the door and get on with the job that he'd taken on. That's all. If that's true, is there any substance in that? And I don't know if there is. If there's any substance in that, that's the worst thing you can do with somebody is talk them round. Because if you talk somebody round, then you're a hostage to fortune because you've convinced them to do something they shouldn't need convincing to do. They should want to do it. And then you're in that situation. So if they've done that, they're going to have a challenge. And then you look at the appointments over the last 2 or 3 years, and it was a constant common denominator of failure, or failure to achieve standards that have been achieved previously. And that's the challenge that United have got. They are victims of their own success. They're not allowed to have this impasse where their team is going to be recreated. Ten Hag, by all of us, was criticised, castigated, and all of these managers seem to talk in psychobabble that no one can quite understand. You've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saying that Man United don't need to win anything. You've got Ten Hag coming out with stuff that clearly in front of our eyes you'd have to be blind pew to agree with him. And now you've got Ruben Amorim talking about things that we can't understand with no improvements, saying things that his players have spoken loudly. And I don't know anyone that's been able to understand that. That's right up there with the sardines are following the trawler.
Well, that's right. But when we break it down, Simon, and I go with everything you're saying, he says there's one more game, that's this weekend, and then we'll decide. There's an international break, and we'll decide from that. I think he's out of there. Or at least he's got 1 foot out of there.
I mean, possibly. I mean, you never underestimate the gumption of people. I think that to have gotten the job of Man United manager, you have to be dragged out there with your fingernails being scraped across the Old Trafford pitch to want to be leaving that environment, unless you haven't got the chops for it in the first place. So if we're talking about the idea that he's resigned to defeat, then good job, get rid of him quick, because he hasn't got the stomach for it, because it requires real gumption, real stomach, real backbone, real balls and real character to get through this challenge of Man United. And too many of us are making excuses for the culture of Man United. But the problem for Man United is that the scrutiny is so ever present that they're not able to have a bad game, a bad moment, a bad set of situations, because it's always there all the time. And so you can't rebuild. You can't, like when you highlight a new stage show, you take it off Broadway and you let it learn and then you bring it back to the big theatres. You can't do that with Manchester United. You're straight in the glare of things. But if you've been in a job in any walk of life for 10 months and it appears to be getting worse, and by your own admission, nothing has changed, well, who's the architect of change? How far do you want to take? Now, he's right to say, well, my formations were the same against Arsenal. My formations were the same against Fulham. So why is my formation becoming a question from a journo that was asking him a question? Because they would ask it.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Phil Jones, and I was listening to one of my old players, Joby McAnuff, and they desperately tried to avoid the formation conversation. And Phil Jones talked about the idea that if you don't approach the game and do the basics, then you'll have no right to be in the game.
Yeah.
And there is always this situation where big clubs come down to lesser clubs and they find themselves under-aroused. In the second half, you can't criticise Man United for being under-aroused. They battered Grimsby. They could have been 3 or 4-0 down, absolutely. And you have to look at the quality of what they're doing on the field. But no one can question the second half's performance in terms of desire to get back in the game, because they did pummel Grimsby.
I would ask you if United have ever been aroused under Amorim. But I tell you what, Simon, as we hit the first break...
Yeah, they come on. They played cup games against Arsenal where people thought they'd turned the corner and they won penalty shootouts or whatever they did.
For any length of time?
No, not for a sustained period of time, and that's the problem.
Last night, Grimsby Town put Manchester United out of the Carabao Cup at the second round stage, 2-2, and then 12-11 on penalties. It was an epic penalty kick shootout. Of that, there is no doubt. What did Ruben Amorim do during that shootout? He sat in the dugout behind his coaches, staring at his toes and wondering, are we going to get there or are we not? What about the optics, Simon? The optics and the way you present yourself, are they not important when you're manager of Manchester United? What did the fans think? And we'll ask a few of them when they look back at this. What did you think?
Well, you'll have ex-players of a high level tell you that once they've crossed the white line, they don't really pay a lot of attention to the manager and what they do and don't say, right? Except, of course, when something happens to them on the field and the manager doesn't respond the way that the media or the fans think that a manager should respond, then the players will latch upon that and say, well, we don't get much of an example from our manager. I don't think it really matters. I mean, watching managers jump up and down like lunatics, confronting fourth officials and whatever else, always to me was theatrics and amateur dramatics for the audience and playing to a gallery, not really affecting the outcome of the players. The players get their minds concentrated before the game and at half-time and post the game and during the week, not in watching the histrionics of a manager jumping around like a demented jack-in-the-box.
Yeah, but in this instance, for leadership, encouragement.
Well, it depends what you think leadership looks like. Leadership is in all different guises. Now, do I think the manager in a penalty shootout should be front and centre? Was he front and centre in the team talk prior to the penalties being taken by the players? Was he in the middle of the group? I don't remember watching it, but was he in the middle of the group talking to the players, telling them what they were going to do, reminding them of their responsibilities and then stepping away? So the rest of the time, are the players, are you telling me that the players are looking left at the manager in the dugout, paying attention to what he's doing?
You might want to hear from him, though.
What, when you're doing a penalty, when you're in the middle of, hold on. When you're in the middle of the centre circle, waiting to walk up to the 18-yard box, you want to hear from your manager? No, of course you don't. That's us picking at it.
Surely it's an odd look. Jason Burt in the Telegraph this morning, he looked like he was hiding. And how can that be a look that anyone at United is comfortable with? It was, for the United head coach, his Wally with a brawly moment.
Okay, do we know if this is a style that he adopted when he was in Portugal? If it was, and given the fact they were an all-conquering side, pack it in a journalist that's never managed a football team or never been in a position of leadership to understand what that actually involves. It's easy to throw brickbats in from the sidelines. Yes, I agree. In an optics-based world, it is important what you look like.
But you're big on optics.
I'm not big on optics.
You are.
I am not.
I constantly. You hammered Ralph Hasenhüttl when he got all emotional and he was crying because I thought Southampton managed to beat Klopp's Liverpool. That's not. What kind of leader is that? Look at Hasenhüttl. You're big on optics.
That's not optics. That's not optics. That's actions.
All of a sudden, it's all right. That's not. It was hiding behind his coaching staff.
I don't think he was hiding. I think he's disengaged from the whole process. I think perhaps he doesn't like.
Bit of an important process.
Well, I think to him, the embarrassment was already there. I think he'd watched his team be scandalously poor during the game. And there's a part of me that thinks, deep in the recesses of his psychological thinking, we're quite happy if Man United lost that penalty shootout, knowing what was coming his way.
Nonsense.
Well, think about it.
He was somewhere in his mind, he'd have been happy if United went out, which they did.
Think about it. First thing he said, which people can say is magnanimous, and I'm not sitting here trying to be overthinking of things, but he was deeply congratulatory of Grimsby, said the better side won, knew that if United had won that penalty shootout, people would have given those players a pass. It would have been bad day at the office in the second half. United dug themselves out. Perky little team from League Two gave everybody a game, but United came through in a penalty shootout, and everyone would have forgotten about it. Now what happens now is there's no hiding from this. There's no hiding from the fact they got battered in the game in the first half. They were lucky not to be 3 or 4-0 down. They had a goal disallowed that should have been given because Harry Maguire, playing the ball in the way that he did, should have not been given the third goal offside that the fella scored coming in off the post. So with that in mind, they get back in the game. They're fortunate to do that. They get through a penalty shootout and they get away with it. And it creates nothing for him. So there's a part of me that thinks, no, I don't think he'd be wishing it, but I don't think he cared at that point. Right. I think he was so embarrassed by what we'd seen on the pitch that he actually felt this is a terrible injustice. These bunch of cheats that are going to get away with this in this penalty shootout, my players, are going to get away with it. So actually, I don't want any part of it.
Bunch of cheats. Is that how you look at the United players this morning?
I think you can't. It's an expression that footballers hate because it's very apt and very appropriate. Yeah. If you turn up in front of fans that have travelled across the country on a wet, windy night on Wednesday to go into a League Two club and put a performance like that in the second half and get embarrassed by a group of players that really and truly should be nowhere near you because they want it more than you, I think that's cheating.
Let's hear from the most important people this morning. As much as I enjoy listening to you, mind you, I've got no choice. Phil's a big United fan. Phil, good morning. What do you want to say on it?
Good morning, fellas.
Morning, Phil.
I think most of the United fans are a bit blinkered about the situation. United is the last few managers underneath the bus. They can turn up into the big games like they did against Arsenal at the start of the season, and basically they were the better team. I'm a season ticket holder. I was there. But when it comes to, unfortunately, the lesser teams like last night, they didn't want to know from the start. And then you got a captain coming on the field, which in my day would gear them up, get them going like a Brian Robson would, and he was just trotting round. He didn't want to be there, especially when the rain come down. They were all there thinking, oh, I want to get out to the place. They have got no desire to wear that United shirt. We see it week in, week out. It's not the manager's fault. Any formation they can play, they should be able to do.
But it is the manager's fault. You can't just allow him a pass. I don't know why you guys are giving him such latitude. I don't agree with you about Bruno Fernandes. I saw him doing a penalty shootout. He was fully engaged, fully behind the team, trying to score penalties.
What did he do in the game?
Well, he was substitute. First of all, he was a second half substitute. When he came on into the game, there was more energy from Bruno Fernandes and the substitutes that were brought on than the previous players that they replaced. So whilst I take your point that he's not a fist thumping captain, he's better than what they had.
I do, but I watch him week in, week out. He has been fabulous at playing, but he's first to blame everyone else, even when he's made a mistake. He's not a captain.
Agreed. I agree with you.
He's a player in the team, and I don't know who we could give the captaincy to.
Well, that's the point, isn't it?
There's enough leaders on the pitch.
Yeah. Phil, thanks for the call. Lee, take me to 11:15 this Thursday morning. Finish it off for me. You're somewhat more calm about this, are you, Lee?
Oh, God, calm down. What's going on? We're 3 games in. If we had a keeper that could keep, we probably wouldn't have lost the Arsenal game. We might have got a draw, and everybody was saying that would be a good result. If Bruno hadn't have missed a penalty, we probably could have won at Fulham, and we could be on 6 points. So just calm down, everybody.
Yeah, but you finished 15th last season.
Yeah, we finished.
You lost an all-English European final in Bilbao. You haven't won a game this season.
Well, let's repackage.
And last night, 56 places.
Well, let's
between the two.
Let's repackage the question to you then. I understand that it's quite right to be sanguine about things. What green shoots of recovery are you seeing?
Well, I like the 3 new signings. For a start, they're better than what we had last year. We're 3 games in, so I can't judge anything yet. I've been watching United since 1972, so I'm not one of these glory boys. That
disappointing. Those two new signings. One of them missed a penalty, or both of them missed penalties that eventually cost you the game.
Harry Kane missed a penalty in a semi-final of a World Cup. So what? And he goes on. He's currently scoring goals in and out. Things happen.
Sure.
You know.
Got a track record, though, isn't he?
You made a lot of common sense. What you just said. For me, we haven't got a keeper. We need an outstanding keeper. We haven't got one. We're playing Bruno, who is an 8 in a 6 position. And as long as we keep playing Bruno in a 6, we're never going to get anywhere. His best position is an 8. And so we're trying to put a square peg into a round hole.
You have faith in the manager who's doing that.
I agree. And your manager's got to sort it out. That's what he gets paid to do.
Do you have faith in him, Lee?
I do have faith in him, pay him what he's worth, and make sure he's worth what he's paid. That's what Simon always said.
Indeed.
So let's see what he does over the next 4 or 5 games. We need to move Casemiro back onto the bench. We need an out-and-out athletic midfield. If we had Matic and N'Golo Kanté in there in midfield on the first 3 games, 2 players like that, we wouldn't be having this conversation now.
Yeah, but you don't, Lee. And we know what's happened in the first 3 games. And we know where United are. Not quite rock bottom, but not far off it.
But there's 3 days left. Let's go out and buy some. You know, what's stopping us?
Lee, when that happens, you'll be the first to know, my man. The morning after, the night before, and what a night. Humiliation for Manchester United out of the Carabao Cup at the hands of Grimsby Town. Well done, Grimsby. That is what cup football's all about. Loved every moment of it. Loved every moment of it.
It's fascinating to hear what Man United fans are saying, because one thing that he did was apologise to the Man United fans, Amorim, and talked about the support.
Yeah.
And they've given him a hell of a lot of support. But there must be a point in the Man United fans' minds now where they're beginning to question. They're beginning to look at it and say, not quite what we expected.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Suffice to say, Celtic fans got a kicking yesterday, gave the club a kicking yesterday, regards going out the Champions League. And the same thing happened to Rangers last night in a pretty spectacular way. What now for Russell Martin? Rangers play Celtic on Sunday. We'll get to all that. Right now, it's all about Manchester United. What on earth happens next? 15th in the Premier League last season. Almost unthinkable. Almost unthinkable. They lost out on an all-English European final to Tottenham Hotspur. And now this. Weeks into the new season, when Amorim said, watch us go now, they've promptly been knocked out of the Carabao Cup by little Grimsby. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to Grimsby. 56 places and 3 divisions between the two. Honestly, what is going to happen next at this huge football club, Manchester United? Chris is a big United fan who's first through to us. Chris, good morning. Where'd you start?
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Simon. Thank you for having me on the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
There are no more excuses, in my opinion. I can see potential in Amorim, and he's very honest. And some of his interviews come across, he does skirt around a little bit. But there are no more excuses. So I know he's sticking to his formation. Something isn't working. Is he so dead against not changing the formation, or, for example, last night having to play with the formation and trying something else that may work? Yes, it worked against Arsenal at the first opening game of the season for the first 10, 15 minutes. But then Arsenal quickly adapted, their formation to go up against what's in front of them.
Chris, you saw it last night with your own eyes. You heard Amorim on this show, not that just moments ago. What do you think he meant when he said during that chat, the players spoke loudly tonight?
In my opinion, what I think he's trying to say, without saying it, is that certain players or particular players are just not open to his tactics or his formation. They're digging their heels in. I don't want to play in that formation. I've never played in that formation before. Or they think it doesn't work in the Premier League. Yes, he had a fantastic record at Sporting. It's a completely different league, different style of football. I think he's basically trying to say that the players aren't on board. I mean, you mentioned a minute ago the 15th position last season. I believe it can get worse than that. There's teams around that area last season that have strengthened this season. I mean, West Ham, for example, has signed a midfielder today. They've been crying out for a midfielder like we have. They're making the moves. It can get worse. And, anything he does better than that will look good for him.
Do you think it's a really legitimate conversation to bring the formation in when you're playing against the League Two side? I mean, I get your point of view about formations when you're playing against elite sides, but you surely can't be making an argument on behalf of any dispute or any justification to say the formation isn't working for the players against the League Two side. It can't be that, can it, surely?
No, I can completely agree, Simon. You can't be saying that, and no disrespect to Grimsby, but Manchester United should be beating teams of that, in that league 4, 5, 6-0 as did Brighton last night. The formation doesn't come into it. You've got players, 50, 60, 70 million pound players. They worked out the cost of Benjamin Sesko is 13 years. Revenue turnover. No, there is no argument.
Chris, you can give me a one-word answer to finish with. After this international break, should he carry on?
I'd say yes. Stick with him and carry on.
Okay, Chris, good call. Thank you for that. Jerry's another United fan who's been waiting patiently. Jerry, good morning. Where do you start in this? Where should it go now?
Good morning, Simon. Good morning, Jim.
Morning.
I've been a United fan since the year you were born, Simon. So I agree totally with what the last caller said. It didn't come to me as a shock that Grimsby won. And well done to Grimsby. I don't know what's wrong. I really don't know. But as Simon said, you cannot blame formation or anything else. A total lack of desire. There's something radically missing from the United's players. I don't know. Amorim, give him another 6 games, and if we don't get 5 wins, get rid of him. That's it. It's terrible, and things can get worse.
Yeah, that's what Chris, the previous caller, said, Jerry. It's almost hard to imagine that it can get worse, but you think it can?
Oh, absolutely. Before last season started, I made a post on YouTube or someplace saying that the 24-25 season was going to be really, really bad, and I got laughed at. Now, I am seriously of the opinion that it can get worse. There's no bottom to how bad things can go. We all know that in life. And I think even if we do wind up in the championship, we'll get torn to shreds because we're up against guys who are playing for the short. It's a catastrophe.
Oh boy, Jerry, where are you calling us from this morning?
I'm calling from County Kerry in Ireland.
Beautiful. Jerry, thank you very much indeed for the call.
I don't think it will come to that.
Remarkable.
I mean, what Danny was saying the other day, I think is quite right. Despite the fact they haven't hit the ground running, they've got goals in that side. They've got more potential threat than they had previously. Despite the fact I was disappointed with Cunha last night, Mbeumo will get you goals, Cunha will get you goals, and the boy that they've signed, hopefully, isn't another Rasmus Højlund in disguise. And so they'll get more goals. And if you look at the defensive record last year, the arguments were about United, this, that, and the other. They didn't actually concede that many goals.
Yeah, but listen, here's the thing. As we hit 10:30, and I'll say it now before we get there, I'm not sure if we've got enough time or not. You were so strong about Solskjaer.
Yep.
You were so strong about Ten Hag. And yet you're not quite in there with the fists flying regards Amorim yet.
I am quite strong. I mean, I'm conscious of being formulaic and everyone shouting at the barking at the situation and reacting immediately. And I'm conscious of the fact that Ruben Amorim, I've made my observations when I've told him about he's a photobomber that dropped his resume into every single football club to try and give himself an opportunity, which doesn't feel like the appointments that Man United made in the past. I felt that he's been given a lot of dispensation over the last 6 or 7 months. I also understood the culture of Man United and feel that the architects of it are people like Solskjaer and his predecessors that have left him with a poisoned chalice of cultural deficiencies.
So if you're Jim Ratcliffe this morning, have you got the finger in the button?
Well, I don't. It's very easy. It's like we'll talk about Russell Martin. It's very easy for people from the outside to look in and say what they think the problem is and look at the fact that they're watching a game on Saturday, which is the only thing you can judge it by, and go, that's what I would be doing if I were them. But if you're behind the scenes and you see what's going on and you really understand what the bigger picture, then if you know that, you have a responsibility to make the right decision. And if you believe in your man, you have to have the stomach to get past the short-term problems. The only difficulty in this conversation, as opposed to the Russell Martin conversation I'm sure we'll have, is this is potentially not a short-term issue. This is the best part of a year. Now, I accept that in a year, you don't turn ocean liners around that quickly and they don't start winning leagues. But you don't turn out a side that's now getting no better 40 games in and you're still saying pretty much the same things as you said within weeks of being in there.
Last night, Rangers in Europe, of course, clinging on by their very fingernails in an attempt to stay in the Champions League. 3-1 down from the first leg against Club Brugge at Ibrox. They went to Belgium, slim hopes of doing anything, and they did nothing. They collapsed in the opening moments of the game and went on to lose the game 6-0 to Club Brugge. So off the back of Celtic going out over in Kazakhstan, now Rangers have joined them, and it couldn't really get any worse for Russell Martin, or could it? This was Martin post-match.
I don't think I've learned anything new tonight. Just really hurt, really embarrassed by the defeat. It's probably the toughest night I've had as a head coach and manager. But yeah, it doesn't change the fact that I think we can get this place going, we can get the team going, and as I said, progress and move forward and grow. And we have an opportunity to really do that, to feel everything tonight that comes our way and to accept it, because we have to, with the manner of defeat. And then we have a chance to really show some character and some growth and some personality and desire on Sunday.
You can hear it in his voice, can't you? It remains 3 wins in 10 for Russell Martin at Rangers. This was the joint heaviest defeat in 153 years of Ibrox history. And Rangers were already 5 down at half-time. Max Aarons was sent off after only 8 minutes. 9-1, they went out on aggregate. Off the back of Celtic, and Celtic, of course, went out on penalties.
The whimper, yeah.
Off the back of that, has there been a more humbling week for Scottish football?
Well, Celtic got beat 7-1 last year by Borussia Dortmund, didn't they? So it exists. It's a bad result. In isolation, a player being sent off doesn't help. I think his players let him down badly. In terms of some of their appetite and some of the defending was just totally disengaged. Everyone seems to have felt that Club Brugge were an opposition that could be overcome by Rangers, but most people that knew didn't think they would. They thought the Club Brugge were a decent Champions League side that had got decent results in previous seasons against Atalanta and Aston Villa, so they weren't there really for Rangers to beat. The challenge for Russell has been there.
9-1 in aggregate.
I know. But Celtic got beat 7-1 by Dortmund and bounced back and then went on to win the league. And everyone seems to have forgotten that. And Brendan spun out a yarn about how well they did in the Champions League because they got knocked out at the same stage they do every bleeding year because they had a couple of decent results for a change. The fact of the matter is that Russell Martin, I think, the ownership has got to be steady in its thinking because the background noise is the background noise. They either know why they employed him, they either still see the reasons why they employed him. They've got to hold fast. It's not their job to back down to the mob. It's not their job to back down to the screaming audience. It's their job to do what's right for the football club. And what's right now may well be that Russell Martin isn't fit for the purpose, but only they know that. And I know that the results are not great. I know that getting a 6-0 tonking, is an appalling outcome. It's not helped by a player being sent off. He does have that in the locker in terms of ultimately it's dissuaded the whole game plan. The 3 games in the league are the ones that are doing for him. They really are doing for him in terms of the league form because 3 draws in a row for Rangers doesn't help his case. He did well against Panathinaikos. I don't care about the style of play. He's trying to change the style of play. He's trying to get the players to adopt to it. It cannot be achieved in 10 games. It cannot be. And if we've really reached a point, really honestly reached a point where a man that's going into a football club doesn't get more than 10 games to change the direction of travel, to be able to implement his ideas, to be able to get players to change the way they're thinking, then people are foolish. And the 49ers know what they employed him for and can still see it. Russell's got to get his shoulders back and his chest out. He's got the brickbats being thrown at him. There's accusations, I think, like even our own producer thinks he's a bluffer. I don't think he is. I think I saw him carry Southampton out of a division when they were in the Championship a couple of years ago. And they weren't great with Southampton, but there's a lot about Russell Martin that's good. I think Danny Murphy, not that Danny Murphy is a blueprint for everything, but Danny Murphy spent time with him and changed his view on him as a football operator. If they're going to fire him after 10 games, I think it's foolish unless he really is a charlatan and the 49ers go, that's not what we thought. This is not the man we employed. He isn't what we thought he was going to be. He's got a great interview face on.
I've nothing against Russell personally, of course. I don't know him. But when the Rangers fans this early repeatedly chant for his sacking...
But that's wrong.
There's a banner, if you're watching on YouTube and your smart TV, hanging outside the gate at Ibrox in Govan, in the south side of the city. Get them out now before the seats are empty.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that this morning.
There's uproar.
There is, but there was the die had been cast before he even walked in the door. There was a significant section of the Rangers fan base that were completely unaroused by this appointment and had no truck with it. We being the global media have created a narrative around Russell Martin that he only plays one way and that he wasn't able to pivot. And he was right to have that accusation laid against him at the time with Southampton. But we don't know whether he's changed or not. He's walked in there, he's trying to implement change into a football club. And if you're seriously telling me that 10 games is all he gets, then Rangers will get what they deserve, which is the next manager suffering from the same malaise. It is understandable that the fans are frustrated. It is understandable and quite right within their gift as emotionally invested people, and because the game survives on emotion, to express their views. It is the job of an owner to step back from that, not be swayed by it, not double down because you made the appointment, but to know why you've got him there. And if you believe the reasons why you've got him there are still the same reasons, you must stand firm in the face of what people are saying.
David is a Rangers fan. I'm coming your way, David. Give me 30 seconds. I want to do this with Simon before we do it. You've been in this position umpteen times as an owner.
Not with a scale of club like Rangers.
Right, but
I understand that.
All right, here's the deal. Russell Martin's sitting opposite you. 9-1 in aggregate last night. You're gone out the Champions League.
Yeah.
Celtic on Sunday coming to pay you a visit.
Well, you're going to see it, aren't you?
What are you going to say to Russell in a few sentences this morning?
Well, I shouldn't need much to say to him, should I? And Russell needs to be a self-starter. I shouldn't need to be saying much to him. He should be saying something to me rather than me saying something to him.
What do you want to hear from him?
Of course I would be supportive of him. And I remember it's a very well-trodden path I've done 100 times before. When Warnock was in situ, we got smashed to pieces 4-0 by Doncaster Rovers or Scunthorpe. We'd just been relegated from the Premier League or something of that nature. And my first response to Neil Warnock was, I should be worried by that performance. And the reason why I'm not is because I got you. Because I believed in him. So I would be giving that exhibition to my manager if I believed in him. And if the 49ers don't believe in Russell Martin after 10 games, then they're weak too. Unless he's a charlatan and sold them an interview face, and when they've got him in the door, he's a complete polar opposite of what he said he was going to be. But I don't think he is.
Right, from distance, you don't think he is?
No, I don't.
At the moment, you're saying, I'm going with you.
Listen, I am guilty of... I mean, I thought Dowie worked wonders for us when he took us from the bottom of the Championship into the Premier League in the first season, but he was a one-trick pony. So you can make mistakes, and when he came on top, he couldn't do it, right? But the fact of the matter is, I think there's more legs in Russell Martin than 10 games. And for the sanity of football, and for the sanity, you can't constantly say that football needs fans' involvement. Fans want security of tenure. Fans want their football clubs to run properly, and then cave into a baying mob because 10 games have passed and they've not been good enough. You've got to give this guy his head, and it can't be 10 games, surely.
David, Rangers fan, good morning. Do you want to see him given more time?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon. Just the comments on it, Simon. I can see to a certain degree your point. You're saying the 10 games and what have you. But if I can put it into context, you know, you're talking about the Manchester United situation, you know, where these people have to hit the ground running and what have you. Well, in Scotland, in Glasgow Rangers, you have to hit the ground running. We've had some really lean years. Now, we've got the big takeover there. The money was given. He was given a lot more money than a hell of a lot of Rangers managers previously. He's brought in these signings, and the style of football is dire. Max Aarons, I fail to understand how that boy even got a game at Premiership level because he's absolutely dreadful. He's making decisions. Picking that team last night, yes, okay, Desert wasn't 100% fit. He should have started. Tavernier, not the greatest right-back defensively Rangers have ever had, but he's an improvement on Max Aarons. Nico Raskin sitting on the bench for whatever reason, which we still don't know. And then to come out, the press conferences after these dire performances is absolutely soul-destroying for Rangers supporters and anybody who knows what the Scottish game's about.
So what do you think? So why do you think the 49ers that came in, took the club over, they made a big announcement? I wasn't particularly enamoured with the announcement because 20 million is not a huge announcement for Rangers. It's a big football club. You've not got governed by PSR. They can spend what they want. And they've got plenty of money. So if they bought Russell Martin in, they must have seen something from him. Do you believe he sold them a pup from the outset and they're naive and wet behind the ears and brought someone in that sold them a song and that can't deliver it? Or is there something missing from the opportunities that he's trying to create for himself?
Well, to be honest with you, Simon, I have to take it back to the Southampton thing as well, because it was exactly the same there. They've brought him in on the back of, I can only think that he's managed within the Premier League. He's went in and done the interview, and I don't know, he must have had some help from some guru from somewhere.
Did you see him in the Championship, though? Because I based my opinion upon seeing him in the Championship, and I saw him manage that Southampton team and drag them up by their bootstraps and divide the perceived favourites, which was Leeds, and take them through the playoffs.
Was a Championship manager good enough for Rangers?
But with respect, there was a standard that some could argue that Rangers and Celtic are at Championship level.
This is Rangers.
I talk about the scale of the club and expectation.
Yeah.
And of course I do. I think it's an enormous football club, but it doesn't operate on enormous budgets, does it? It doesn't buy enormous players, does it?
David, in a word, should Russell Martin carry on, yes or no?
Absolutely not, Jim.
Okay. David, thank you for that. Dean's another Rangers fan. So many Rangers fans queuing up to get on. Dean, what do you want to say? Good morning.
Good morning. I have to disagree again with Simon. I generally do agree with everything that he says, or most of the things that he says, but this morning I couldn't believe what I was listening to. The players let him down. But he's also letting the players down. Russell Martin's a centre half as a professional footballer. We can't defend a cross. We can't defend a set piece. He's brought in guys from the Championship. He's brought in guys from lower leagues in England. And Ali McCoy said it in commentary last night. They look like wee boys. It was like wee boys trying to play football last night. He was going to make. He brought in Max Aarons. If he was always going to be the first choice right back when they brought in a left back, why is James Tavernier still the captain at Rangers?
So you don't think they're making the right decisions? You question the decision making, Dean?
It's the decision making. Bringing in the players. If you're bringing in players, fine. But the quality and the standard of players that they're bringing in clearly aren't there.
Dean, if Rangers beat Celtic on Sunday, does that shift your position on Russell Martin?
No. I wouldn't have him in the dugout on Sunday. Not a chance.
Do you think then that the 49ers are culpable because do you think they've given him autonomy over who he signs? Do you think they've had no investment, no conversation whatsoever?
I think they've had their pants pulled down by him and the other two, Thelwell and I can't remember the other boy's name.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
I think between the three of them, if so quickly Russell Martin came out last night and said, "Oh, my job's still safe," he was sniggering away when he's having his press conferences if he tried to pick fights with fans on Sunday in his interview, saying he's not really bothered about the fans. Well, he'll be bothered now, and the 49ers will soon be bothered when people don't start turning up.
So is this a must-win for Russell Martin on Sunday against Celtic?
An Old Firm is always a must-win.
Yeah.
It's always a must-win game. But it's not about it shouldn't be about Russell Martin. Rangers have to win the game on Sunday if they want to have any chance of salvaging anything. But if he's still the manager on Sunday and Rangers lose on Sunday, things will get very toxic very quickly. And if they think it's bad now, it'll be a lot worse come Sunday night.